How's it going, everybody? Shepasaurus here. Return of Reckoning just released a new patch yesterday, January 17th. We've got it up here on their website, returnofreckoning.com. This is where you download the game, set up your free account. It's also where you can see player counts and the latest news. They are constantly updating this game, even though it originally came out in 2008, and then this private shard was created in 2014. Let's get straight into this. Weekend Warfront. This happens every weekend. They added it into the patch notes here. Stumbling upon an unusual network of tunnels beneath Prague, a small band of Order finds themselves within the slumbering walls of the Eternal Citadel. Followed by members of Destruction, these two forces clash within the throne room, but that is not all that trespasses through this labyrinth of twisted reality. This weekend, Foray of Fate will be the Weekend Warfront from 12 on Friday to 12 on Monday, Altdorf time. You get 50% experience and renown in the Eternal Citadel scenario and extra rewards from completing the event task. This week, if you complete all the tasks, you will get a new title, the Eternal Infiltrator, the Order or Citadel Cerberus as Destruction. New content has been added. They've added some new tutorial quests for new players coming in, and also one of them you will want to do even if you're an old player and you already know where all this stuff is. Let's get into it. The new tutorial quest, Dragonback Pass. Players who reach level 9 will now get a new tutorial quest in the mail that guides you towards Dragonback Pass dungeon. This is a new dungeon that was just released at the end of 2024, and there was no real tutorial or anything pointing someone to the dungeon when you reach appropriate levels. So now you'll get something in the mail, a quest. You open up the envelope, and it'll drag you right to it. Great addition there. The next one, new tutorial quest, War Camp bonus damage. Players who reach level 20 will now get a new tutorial quest in the mail aimed at teaching them about the bonus damage taken in Realm vs. Realm if pushing too close to an enemy war camp. This happens way too much, especially in T1. People will push into an enemy war camp, get way too close, not knowing they're going to take extra damage. Everyone gets wiped, and then they push back and steal the flags. So this is a great addition, new tutorial quest. This quest can be completed in either High Pass, Tablecland, or in the Chaos Waste. This will ensure players have a non-active Realm vs. Realm lake to use because there's always two open at one time in Tier 1. This quest starter item has also been added to the Records Keeper in both the Altdorf Library and the Lyceum. New tutorial quest, Heralds. This is the one you're going to want to do even if you're not a new player, you're a returning player, or you've got max level characters. Players who reach level 38 will now get a new tutorial quest in the mail. This quest will guide players to both the Realm vs. Realm and Dungeon Weekly Heralds in Altdorf, or the Inevitable City, depending on whether you're Destruction or Order, as well as the Companion Keeper. Completing the quest awards 3 1-hour 660 armor potions. These can rack up costs if you're trying to hit your armor cap. When you open up your character screen and you go over to your stats, you can change it to defensive and look at how much armor you have. It will also tell you the percentage of damage reduction. And once you hit 100%, you're capped. But if you're below 100%, I believe it's around 4,400 armor, you will want to be using armor potions to try and get to that cap. So this free armor potions, these start to cost a lot of money. This is a great addition here. Dragonback Pass updates. They added invisible barriers to prevent people from scaling unintended mountains in the dungeon. I guess people were trying to leave the boundaries of Dragonback Pass, and there was areas where they could actually climb over the mountains and break the game. Intended mountain scaling is still encouraged, however. Just watch out for trolls. Chapter 22 changes. For those of you who don't know, Chapter 22 is a series of 24-man public quests that are built as a raid for 24 players. They were updated and relaunched in September of last year, 2024. Chapter 22 public quests are pretty tough. The first time you go through it, expect a lot of wipes, but there's some great rewards. It's the only place to acquire the new Onslaught gear. It's a special PvE gear set that'll grant the Vanquish reward. On to the Chapter 22 changes. They've added new visual improvements, bug fixes, and quality of life updates. Starting with Gorefang Rutgot, Dwarf Chapter 22. When a player is given Gork's gift, they'll now gain a visible skull icon over their head to warn the Warband they will die once the 20-second timer expires. This is great. I'm really hoping they add some type of marker like this to Bastion Stairs. You know, the final boss, you get a debuff where if you do any damage to the boss, you will kill yourself. It's not obvious to all players. It is not a nice icon above your head. You don't start glowing. So a lot of people just keep attacking the boss and end up killing themselves. So this is a great addition to that boss. Malice Darkblade, High Elf Chapter 22, Impending Corruption, which triggers AoE puddles at 75% health. They will once again be properly display the red lights on all those affected before the puddles appear. That's great, so you could already be ready to move. The Ebon Keep, which is the Empire Chapter 22, the Exalted ads spawned upstairs in this public quest have had their abilities toned down in damage and their total health reduced. The destroyable game objects, which buff the boss, have had their HP reduced as well. Additionally, Urlan's the Changer's Surging Flames interruptible AoE attack is now always visible and will display as blue and purple flames. Tanks near the boss will now periodically gain a new swap granted ability, which will let them reduce their hatred on the boss in order to help a second tank pick up the aggro. Great addition there. You tanks all know it is definitely difficult when you lose aggro to steal the aggro back from the other tank. All the King's Men, Chaos Chapter 22, the Reichsguard Inner Circle ads have had their health slightly reduced, and the destroyable game objects which buff the boss have had their health slightly increased. This will match the Order's public quest better. Tanks near the boss will now periodically gain a new swap granted ability, just like before. This allows them to reduce their hatred on the boss in order to help a second tank pick up the aggro. Next up, Glittering Citadel, which is the Dark Elf Chapter 22. The Chilled Mark skill, which triggers AoE puddles at 75%, will once again display red lights on all those affected. Additionally, the furthest target from the raid will also probably see a red light now before their puddle drops. White bags in all the Chapter 2 public quests have been upgraded to now offer 2 plus 24 or equivalent talismans instead of 1. That is great. Next up, Warband Leader Bonus. A new mount has been added. For those of you who don't know, when you lead a warband in Realm vs. Realm, you will get Warband Leader tokens. These allow you to buy things like renown potions, new exotic mounts. A new mount's been added for that, the Rage Beast. The new Rhinox mount that originally debuted during this year's Damon Moon Bleeding event has been added to the exotic mount vendor in capital cities. This is great. 7-day version has also been added exclusively for Warband leaders. For more information on how to acquire the Warband leader marks, there is a wiki page, Return of Reckoning wiki, or you can go to returnofreckoning.com and look at the top. You have links to go straight to the wiki there. New titles have been added for Warband leaders, and I think some of them are pretty great. The 5 new titles are Herder of Cats for 10 marks. And this couldn't be more true. If you ever tried leading a public warband for the first time in T1 or early T2, Herder of Cats, it's not organized. Everybody wants to go where they want to go, and you're typing as loud as you can to get people to follow you around. It's fantastic. Second one, Cries in the Shower. I'm probably going to keep this title on at all times. 20 marks. I'm super excited about this one. Once you get 30 marks, you unlock the Infinitely Patient. Rising Commander at 50 marks, and then Lord Commander at 100 marks. Gotta go for that. Bastion Stairs. They do have some new fixes and quality of life updates for Bastion Stairs. Wow, I have not read this yet, guys. Maybe what I was just talking about before they've added, and that would be fantastic. Let's read through this. New fixes and quality of life updates for Bastion Stair have arrived. These are aimed at fixing Skull Lord and making his infectious rage more visible for players. I was just talking about this. I didn't read this before, guys. Balancing some bosses, improving AoE visuals, and adding a new teleport for players who get the Book of Binding teleport bug in the middle wing. Get straight into dungeon changes. Skull Lord now properly turns after punting his target or changing aggro. The Skull Lord will now eventually reset if players remain too far from him. And Skull Lord Infectious Rage and Corn's Affliction now announce the affected player in center screen message again. Thank you, devs. This is a much needed fix to Bastion Stairs. Awesome job. Infectious Rage now also appears in your chat window and casts a visible skull icon over the impacted player while active. There is no longer any excuse, guys. When you see this, stop attacking the boss. New teleport, a new mob named Karn's Blood Fiend has been added in front of Karn, the Vanquisher's door. Killing this mob will trigger a new teleport skill at the dungeon's entrance, allowing players to jump right back to this location in case the Book of Binding bug hits while leaving Karn's room. Borzen's Rageborn. This boss no longer has taunt immunity when he spikes aggro to a different target. This is intended to happen when his banner is not destroyed, but given the extra damage the boss gained in the relaunch last year, this mechanic has been removed to better balance the fight for tank. Ulrif, Daemon Blessed, Steaming Skulls have had their damage reduced. 10% reduction per skull. The hardest part of this fight still remains at the first 30 seconds or so, but this should make it a little more manageable. That's great. A lot of under-geared groups will continuously wipe here because they can't last through the first 30 seconds. What happens is you go into the room, there's 2 skulls up, there's a boss, and the skulls are constantly doing AoE damage, and the boss will give a 10-second sucker punch stun to the first person who aggroes it. So you can imagine how this plays out for first-time groups. The tank runs in, going to take aggro of the boss. Everyone's taking AoE damage. All of a sudden, the boss stuns the tank for 10 seconds. He switches aggro. The boss is now on your healer, trying to heal everyone through the damage taken by these skulls, and everyone goes down. It's definitely a difficult boss. Once you get the mechanics right, it's not too bad. I'm sure the strategy will remain the same. A DPS runs in, takes the first 10-second stun. Everyone moves into the room as the tank picks up the boss. Everyone de-taunts the skull on the right while killing the skull on the left. And once the skull on the left is down, they switch to kill the skull on the right and then kill the boss and repeat as necessary. Visual improvement. Galavoth's Dark Rage Lightning Puddle AoE will now always display. This is great. I've been killed by this before. When you're kiting him around the room, you see lightning puddles coming down. All of a sudden, you stop seeing lightning puddles coming down and you just start losing health. And you're not sure where you need to run to get away from it. So this is a great fix. Visual improvement. Karn, the Vanquisher's Blood Puddles will now always display. Same thing. A new extremely rare drop. Wing bosses now have a very small chance to drop a 90-day version of the new Broken Captured Rage Beast mount. Skull-Lord's chance to drop this is doubled. If a Lucky Party hits the jackpot, 2 mounts will drop instead of just 1. That's fantastic. This gives people another reason to run Bastion Stairs. Sometimes it's hard to get a group for this. This is the hardest dungeon right now, not including Chapter 22 because they're public quests. So big fan of this edition. It'll make it easier to find people to run the dungeon. People have more reasons to run it. Down to items. All renowned potion descriptions now clarify that their timers will continue when a player is logged out, and fixed many armor icons. Miscellaneous fixes: 2 Prague fences, 1 north of Martyr Square and 1 near the Manor BO, into which players would frequently get punted and stuck, have a wall knocked down so the fight can properly continue. That's great. So many times have I gotten punted, knocked back, and got stuck in a wall or a rock or a tree. So I'm glad they're looking at fixing these. It just goes to show, this game, people say, oh, it's dead, it's dying. Well, no, they're still releasing fixes every month, every other month. News updates. The dev team is doing an amazing job. Kudos to them on that. Combat and careers. General changes and fixes. Fixed an issue where melee power and range power was contributing to strike through on auto attacks and not on abilities. All item procs that proc on hit and on heal and on being hit have been reworked to function properly. It looks like a lot of on hit procs or on heal procs have been given an internal cooldown and put on the global cooldown as well to help make this function correctly. And there's a bunch of skills here. I won't go through them all. Of course, you can look at this news on the Return of Reckoning webpage if you're interested in seeing them all. But as you can see, I'm opening up here. There's quite a few updated skill. Engineer bug fixes. Phosphorus shells now require line of sight to the target. Great fix. Swordmaster, the blade enchantments now function as toggled ability, same as Black Orc War Bellows. Nice quality of life there. White Lion bug fix. Beta Trap no longer stacks with other abilities and potions. And with the Magus, Firestorm now requires line of sight to the targeted location. Some updates to Realm vs. Realm. Zone lock bags should now always be properly awarded to Tier 2 and Tier 3 RVR zones. If you notice in Tier 2 and Tier 3 RVR zones, you might just get one war mark and no bag from hours of fighting. Now that is supposedly fixed. That's great. Siege machines. The person who spawns the siege can now tow it from whomever has taken it at any point. The siege fire button should now light up again once the usage cooldown is over. No need to keep dropping and reselecting oil to pour each time. That's great. Trying to repair a siege in the siege UI should now properly tell the player that it's not working. Some changes to the keep, especially for claimed keeps. So they enabled banker keep upgrade, vault keeper upgrade for claimed keeps. These will always go back to your bank in IC Altdorf. Enabled the option to upgrade static guards and keep to champions. I'm not sure how much that will help. Maybe if it's a low population time, it'll keep some smaller warbands from being able to PvE a keep. Added support to remove keep upgrades purchased. That's pretty nice. Enabled the healer ritualist keep upgrade. These NPCs will stand in the first floor of inner and spam AoE healing once engaged. That's pretty good. That'll help out the defense quite a bit. Enable the life tap ritualist keep upgrade. These NPCs will stand in Lord Room and spam AoE life tap once engaged. So just making it a lot easier for defenders to defend a keep, which it should be. Defenders should have a stronger position when defending than the attackers. And typically, when you're seeing an attack on a fortress or a keep, you won't see someone attack a keep with less players. They're going to wait until their side has more players before attacking the keep. So this will just make some of those keep battles a little bit more even. Great change, I think. We'll see how that turns out. Now, fortress doors and posterns can no longer be used while rooted, matching the behavior of keeps. And city sieges, players will now properly be teleported back to their spawn at the start of stage 2. Some changes here to the interface. Warband, promoting someone to assistant, should no longer send a message to the leader. It'll now correctly send it to the promoted player. That saves on a little bit of chat spam there. And the distance shown in open group should be more realistic. Guild. Guild rewards tab now only lists rewards that actually exist. There was some old mythic rewards that were showing that they weren't working or never added. Those have been removed. Events starting soon announcements should no longer announce 30 minutes after the start time and only before. State of the Realm. Fortress doors are now fixed in the State of Realm add-on and should no longer display as 0%. Finally, some friends list changes and bug fixes. If a player has set hidden, it will be respected now on login, so you will always be shown as offline on other players' friends list. If a friend switches zone, it should update on your friends list, assuming they are not hidden. And change friend list limit to 100 to not cause client issues. They added a 100 limit on ignore list. Now, there's a bunch of bug fixes here as well for abilities, city, crafting, dungeons, fortresses, guilds. There's a lot here. We won't go through all of them, but I did want to take a look at some of the ability bug fixes because that will affect the most players. Guilty Soul shouldn't be defendable. Leon Frenzy removes and gives immunity to knockdown effects. There's been an Oathstone tooltip fix. Phantom's Blade Wounds buff no longer will stack. Wear 'em Down now works with Reckless Blow. Tastes Like Chicken now only allows instant summon of the first next squig. Kaboom now requires players to be grounded to use. Multiple abilities now excluded from Close Quarters and Expert Skirmisher. Stubborn as Stone no longer increases Oath Friend attack speed. That's unfortunate. I always set that buff up as my Ironbreaker because the attack speed increase was huge. And it looks like that wasn't intended or they noticed it was causing way too much extra damage. Balls tempering ranged fixed. Horn Squig and Summon Squig now removes Farty Squig. Vicious Strikes can now proc on multiple targets with one AoE attack. Warband requirement removed from tooltip for Don't Feel Nothing and Shield of Safari. Updated tooltip Vindication to reflect it does not affect damage procs. Choking Smoke no longer removes Flash Fire proc. Blurring Shock no longer procs Blessing of Heaven. The block chance from Shield Rush no longer stacks with other sources. Tooltip errors. Zetch's reflection. They've been corrected. Vol's tempering ability indicator on perfect balance has been fixed. Witch Hunter Burn Heretic requires melee range instead of pistol range. All dissolving mist attacks, both Magus and PvE versions, now continue to hit properly after 10 seconds, and abilities that apply damage to an enemy while they are moving will now correctly check if a PvE mob is moving or not. Awesome job, development team here. Awesome patch. Great to see consistent updates coming to this game. Makes me want to keep playing. I hope to see you all in the Realm vs. Realm and scenarios, and if you need a group, shoot me a message.